Welcome into the NFL opening line report. We got regular season upon us. Football is here. I am Drew Martin, as always, with Teddy Covers here each and every Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us, guys. Football season is here. Teddy, welcome on in. I know you're feeling good.
Yeah. It's been a great preseason. No complaints whatsoever. The clients are happy. I'm happy. It's been a good August. And let's see if we can keep it rolling. Obviously, today's show is not about week one. We're going to talk futures today. Win totals and the futures that I focus on, win totals and odds to win division. We're not going to talk about who's going to win the Super Bowl. We're not going to talk about who's going to win the conferences. You can play your long shot futures wherever you want to play them. But when it comes to win totals, something I'm pretty good at over the years. And it's something that already this season, the win report part one came out. What was the beginning of late June, beginning of July? I'm trying to remember the actual date of it. The bottom line is I had 3 overs. I'm glad I bet them when I did. All 3 of them gotten steamed. My unders have taken money as well. And part 2 of that report comes out tomorrow. There are 3 teams that I'm still thinking about. Don't know if I'm going to add all 3. 1, 2, we'll see. But I do expect that we will have at least one additional release tomorrow, noon Pacific time, if you want to get on board over at WagerTalk.com. So let's talk about it. I'll give you the 3 on my short list today, probably. Then I'll talk about some of the stuff we already bet, and we'll talk about where the markets are moving when it comes to win totals, when it comes to odds to win the division for WagerTalk for the opening line report this week. And then next week, obviously, on Labor Day, Drew's taking Labor Day off. That's okay. We'll give him a day off. He deserves one every once in a while. But I'll be on to talk week 1 numbers next Monday at this time. So that sets it up, Drew. Let's get right into it.
Let's get into it, guys. We got AFC East up first. Buffalo Bills finished last season 13-3, followed by the Miami Dolphins at 9-8. New England Patriots finishing at 8-9, and the New York Jets 7-10 at the bottom of the division. But of course, some movement here in the quarterback world with Aaron Rodgers coming in. We got division odds here, Teddy. I'm seeing Buffalo Bills plus 120, New York Jets plus 240, Miami Dolphins plus 300, then a little bit of a tick down to the New England Patriots at plus 850. So I'll throw it over to you. We're going division by division, guys. AFC East here. What are we looking to do?
And I like that you've thrown out numbers, that you've given us numbers, Drew, because I'm going to give numbers that are slightly different.
Okay.
You're coming from one book. I'm coming from a different book. There is line variance from book to book of all the things that you need. You know, I always say if you have one account open 2, you have 2 accounts open 3, you have 3 accounts open 4. Of all the things you need to open accounts for, besides getting the extra half point each week, is to make these future wagers, if you're going to make them, at the best of the number. And there is significant variance from one book to another. So Buffalo, look, they were 10.5 over minus 150 pretty much at the open. They're still 10.5 over minus 150 on Buffalo. There are some 11s out there. You know, we haven't seen a lot of movement pro or against the Bills so far this preseason. Buffalo hasn't looked great this August. There have been concerns, certainly in terms of their depth, in terms of their offensive line. You know, the Bills haven't been a team that, in my mind, comes out of preseason with the arrow pointed up. They come out of the preseason with the arrow pointed neutral at best. Miami, 9.5 under minus 120 at the beginning of June. They're still 9.5 under minus 120. They basically haven't taken any money at all. You talked about the $3 wager plus $3 for the Dolphins. Dolphins look pretty good. They really do. How good they're going to be is largely going to be based on Tua and his health and the offensive line, their ability to protect him. The Patriots have taken under money. All right. We talked about New England at the beginning of June, 7.5 under minus 125. Now we're looking at 6.5 over minus 140. So it's really a move of a little bit more than a half a win between the 7.5 and the 6.5 based on the juice. Plus 800 to win the division. New England is clearly the 4th out of 4 teams in this division in the betting markets. And see the Patriots lined at 6.5. You know, there could be upside for New England. The New England's the team that I come into this season, the regular season, without a particularly strong opinion. I don't know if I'm betting on or betting against New England. New England we're going to have to see. And they may get better as the season progresses. But certainly the markets don't like them this offseason. The Jets, they were 9.5 over 130 in June. They're 9.5 over a quarter right now. I'm selling at plus 270 to win the division this morning. The wise guys want to hate the Jets. They really do. There's been a lot of anti-Jets thought processes. If you watch the Jets in the preseason, there's hope for that team in a way there probably hasn't been in decades. I'm not going to jump on the wise guy anti-Jets bandwagon. That team might be pretty good. They certainly have the weapons offensively, and the defense was rock solid last year indeed. So there's upside for the Jets. The markets aren't doing a lot with New York. They've been 9.5, and they're still sitting at 9.5.
Teddy, good start here. And guys, feel free to chime in the comments below. Any questions you have for us, we'll answer them at the end of the show, next week's show as well. Teddy, I got a question for you with the AFC East. You brought it up, Buffalo kind of not looking all that great. Of course, questions with Tua. Can he stay healthy for 17 games? The Patriots, you brought up the fact, hey, there might be I almost kind of feel like you said maybe like a little buy low opportunity. I mean, it is Belichick, usually a pretty good defense. And then the Jets bringing in a new quarterback, new system here. I almost feel like the AFC East is maybe the trickiest one coming into this upcoming season. Are you feeling that about this division?
Tricky? I don't know what's tricky or not. This is what I know. This team, this is a good division. All right, Buffalo's a good team. The Jets are a good team. Miami's a good team, and New England's at least an okay team. All right. So when you're ranking divisions in the NFL, AFC East is going to be at or near the top of the list. But in terms of tough, look, nothing's easy in this game. I mean,
Sure.
I don't know that the AFC East is tough. In terms of who's going to win, it's a tough handicap. I'm not going to recommend anyone to win this division. I have no idea who's going to win this division. I think there are 3 live teams. So, yeah, that's tough in the sense. But in terms of handicapping, the AFC East isn't any tougher than the other. Find me an easy division. Tell me which division's easy to handicap the games, Drew, and I'm all ears.
I got what you're saying. I mean, man, I don't know if I could come up with an easy one. You're right.
Exactly.
In terms of just tricky, though, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if anything happens in the AFC East. I think Buffalo is a step ahead of the others, but I'm not 100% confident in the Bills. I mean, if the Dolphins or if the Jets
I'm not either.
Yeah.
So the 2 teams that I would target would be Miami and the Jets. Absolutely. I'm not sold on them. And, of course, we'll see Buffalo and the Jets play on Monday Night Football to open up the season. So we'll talk about that game next week. The Dolphins open up the season in L.A. against the Chargers. We'll talk about that game next week as well.
Sure, a good one. Competitively priced, 2.5 right now? Dolphins catching on the West Coast to open up the season as we head down here, guys. AFC North Division up next. That was the Cincinnati Bengals finishing on top. Joe Burrow and company, 12-4. Of course, the one game last year in the regular season you might remember did not finish. We had the Baltimore Ravens 10-7. Pittsburgh, the Steelers 9-8. So 3 teams over 500 last season. Teddy, AFC North. The bottom was Cleveland, the Browns sitting at 7-10. I'm seeing the division futures here. Bengals plus 160, followed by the Ravens plus 220, Browns plus 325, and Pittsburgh Steelers plus 475. So I'll throw it over to you, Teddy. What are we thinking in the AFC North?
Yeah, so again, we talk about the 2 best divisions in football. We're talking about them right at the top. AFC East, AFC North. There are no bottom feeders in this division. Not even maybe. And, of course, you talked about that Cincinnati game last year where the Bengals and the Bills played only 16 games as opposed to 17 games. Both still cashed overs for season win bettors in theory, despite the fact that the one game was canceled. We all remember that was that a Monday night game or Sunday night game where Devin Hamlin was carted off the field. When we look at the markets right now, the Ravens have been a very popular team this offseason. 9.5. The over got juiced up to minus 170. That's a June number. Now I'm looking at 10.5s for the Ravens, over plus 100. So we've seen, again, when it's minus 170 at 9.5, that correlates to 10 minus 120. So the 10.5 over 100. It's a half win move for the Ravens. It's not a full game move. The juice factors in there at plus 235 to win the division. Look, there are no long shots to win this division. Cincy, 11.5 to the under back in June. Now it's 10.5 juice to the over. And again, we got under minus 130, over minus 130 for the full game from 11.5 to 10.5, and I'm trying to make this, but that's actually the 60 cents worth of juice makes it only a half game move, even though it's a full game from 11.5 to 10.5. At the books, the juice factored in. The money's come for Cincinnati under. That's all Joe Burrow money. With Burrow's injury, they're still the favorites to win the division. Cleveland took a little bit of over money early. They were 9.5. There were 9s early on. That got bet up to 9.5 early, minus 140. Now we're seeing minus 135. So a little bit of over money for Cleveland. They look real good on paper. Plus 400 to win the division was the numbers that I saw this morning. And of course, Pittsburgh. You want to talk about a hot team coming out of the preseason? The Pittsburgh Steelers are one of those teams. Pittsburgh looked great this August. Tomlin's track record, again, he got here in 2007. He's still looking for his first losing season in Pittsburgh. They cashed win totals over last year again. 8.5 over minus 155 in June. Now we're looking at 8.5 over minus 150-ish. We'll call them a 9. 8.5 minus 150 equates to a 9. So we have seen at least a little bit of over money for Pittsburgh. They're still the longest shot to win the division at plus 500. Although, again, you talk about a team that's hot in the markets. Pittsburgh has definitely attracted some betting market attention with their results and their performances here in August. And, of course, Tomlin's long-term track record.
AFC South Division up next, guys. And last year, a recap, the Jacksonville Jaguars cashing a plus 700 ticket to win the division, finishing 9-8, the only team over 500 in the AFC South last season, followed by the Tennessee Titans, 7-10. Colts finished 4-12 with also a tie, in the Houston Texans 3-13 with a tie. Texans plus 800 at the bottom, Colts plus 700. We got the Titans sitting at plus 325, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, our first minus price of the show here, Teddy, minus 175 to win the division. Throw it over to you, AFC South.
Yeah, there'll be a couple of those minus prices when all said and done, including the biggest price on the board. Jacksonville, not the biggest price on the board. That said, when it comes to winning the division, the Jags have certainly been, they deserve to be the favorites. They're 9.5. And again, they were 9.5 over minus 135. Now I'm seeing 9.5 over minus 140. The June numbers versus late August numbers. We haven't seen a lot of movement on the Jags from a win total standpoint. The Houston Texans, they took a bunch of over money early. And since then, we've seen a little bit of under money. They were as low as 5.5 at the open. They were 6.5 under minus 130 in June. And they're 6.5 under 130, 140 right now. So, we'll call it 5.5 up to 6.4 and then back down a little bit. Now they're 6.2. If we're going to factor the juice into the equation for the Texans. The Indianapolis Colts, were 6.5 over minus 135 back in June. Now we're talking about 6.5 over minus 120. And I got them at 6-1 to win the division. The Colts, how do we say this politely? They have quarterback depth. Their preseason did not impress me. Indy's not a team that I'm looking to bet on early this season. Of course, Shane Steichen coached Jalen Hurts in Philly last year. I'm not convinced Anthony Richardson, and whenever the rookie wins the job, you expect a little bit of under money. That said, Indy has taken over money from where they were back in June. So is Tennessee. Tennessee was 7.5 under minus 130 back in June. Now they're 7.5 over minus 125. I'm seeing a plus 350 to win the division. And the thought process with the Titans, the reason they've taken over money, it all started when they signed DeAndre Hopkins. There was a kind of a mixed thought process of what Tennessee was going to do this year. Is it a rebuilding season? Are they going to go with a young quarterback? They're bringing Tannehill back. And once they signed Hopkins, the markets are like, all right, they're playing for, there's no rebuilding here. They're going for this year. They're bringing Tannehill back, and Tennessee is what they are. So we've seen a move to the over on the Titans, about a 50-cent move in terms of juice. And that really started with the Hopkins signing, a team that looks, at least coming into the season, like they're not playing for next year. They're playing for a division title this year. If that's the case, Tennessee's one of these teams. I've got very mixed feelings on the Titans. We're gonna watch and learn a little bit with Tennessee, because there's part of me thinks this team has a ton of upside, and part of me thinks that maybe not so much. So Titans are a team that my personal opinion on them is very much in flux right now. I don't know if I'm going to like or dislike Tennessee, which means probably not going to bet them week one.
Good stuff, Teddy. We got AFC South in the books here. I guess, Teddy, I have one follow-up question for you in this division. You brought up the fact The Colts, rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson. I thought it was interesting. You said the quarterback coach coming over from Philadelphia, of course, with Jalen Hurts doing a great job there. Not that Anthony Richardson, Jalen Hurts have exactly the same profile of what they bring to the game, but quarterback coaches, I guess, moving over, is that a huge part of your handicap? And how much do you think that helps Richardson this season?
It's not a huge part of my handicap. No, I mean, it's something you talk about. It's something you pay attention to. The fact that he has a QB whisperer as his head coach is in theory going to be a good thing for Indy. But anytime you're talking about breaking down systems and putting in new systems, and you have a rookie quarterback and you have rookie, I mean, there will be some growing pains in Indy. This team is not going to be a finished product week one, and I don't look at Indy as a team that I expect to have a lot of upside in 2023. Anytime you're talking about, again, rookie quarterback, new head coach, the urgency to win now isn't there. Indy's building for the future, and there will be growing pains this year, plain and simple.
Next up, we're heading out west, the AFC West division, that is. And last year's recap here, Kansas City Chiefs finished 14-3 at the top of the division. The LA Chargers also qualified for the playoffs, 10-7, followed by the Las Vegas Raiders, 6-11, and then followed by the Denver Broncos at the bottom, just 5-12. Futures here for this upcoming season, Kansas City Chiefs, another minus price tag here, minus 165, followed by the Chargers, plus 280, Denver Broncos, plus 575, and Las Vegas Raiders, plus 1,250. A long shot here with the Raiders in the West Division. Teddy, what are we thinking AFC West?
And again, I'm going to hype the concept of getting the best of the number. It's not even a wise guy book. The DK, you can get the Raiders at plus 1,600 to win the division. So when you shop around, it can make a big difference in your bottom line. You want plus 1,275 if the long shot comes through, or you want 16-1. It's up to you. It's entirely up to you whether you want the better payout or not. Just all you have to do is open an account. The number's right there for you. We're going in alphabetical order, as I've done in every division. Let's start with the Broncos. Over under 8.5 wins, minus 110 in June. Over under 8.5 wins, minus 110 right now. Plus 600 to win the division. The Broncos are the clear third choice in this division after the Chiefs and the Chargers. This division is very well segmented. Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders. That's the way the markets have them. And that's the way my power ratings have them. Although maybe not as much as the markets do. But certainly, when you talk about Nathaniel Hackett being, I don't love this Broncos team. But when you take away the worst head coach in the league last year and bring in Sean Payton, you have to expect some improvement. The Broncos feel like a 500 level team. Chiefs over under 11.5 at the open, over minus 140. They're still 11.5 minus 140. I can understand a case for the Chiefs under, not with my money. Andy Reid's been an over machine. And when I'm talking about an over machine, I mean an over machine. He's won on an over his win total every year in Kansas City. And he's got 12 more wins each of the last 5 years. I ain't betting the Chiefs under 11.5, even at the plus price. Minus 165 in the division. KC the clear choice there. The Raiders have taken under money. They were 7.5. And again, that wasn't the market. There were 7.5 under 80 early on. There were 7s out there. Now I'm seeing 6.5s under minus 130. They found a backup quarterback in O'Connell, which they needed to find someone behind Garoppolo, who has a pretty bad injury history, and they had a pretty positive preseason, but they're still by far the longest shots to win the division. They've taken under money since June, and I can understand why. And for all the success O'Connell had this year in the preseason, again, he was a rookie quarterback playing against teams that didn't care. I'm not convinced that if Jimmy G gets hurt, the Raiders season's over. Chargers 9.5 minus 110 at the open. Sorry, not the open. This is June numbers. I'm seeing 9.5 over minus 120 now, so a little bit of over money for LA. Plus 290 to win the division. The Chargers' frontline talent is really good. Really good. My concern about the Chargers is their depth, and that lack of depth was definitely on display this August. If the Chargers are a team, and when they're healthy, they're going to be power rated near the top of the league. But if the injuries start to strike, if the key injuries strike for the Chargers, I'm going to downgrade them fairly quickly because I don't think they have quality depth behind their frontline starters.
That does it for the AFC, guys. Feel free to chime in the live chat box. Thanks for joining us here. WagerTalk YouTube channel each and every Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific time for the NFL Opening Line Report. I am Drew Martin. He is Teddy Covers as we head to the NFC. NFC East up first, guys. Philadelphia Eagles, last year's recap, finished at the top 14-3, followed by the Dallas Cowboys 12-5. New York Giants 9-7-1. All three teams qualifying for the playoffs. And then at the bottom of the division was the Washington former football team 8-8-1. Seeing the futures here, Teddy. Eagles -135 to win the division this season. Dallas Cowboys +175. New York Giants +800, and the Washington Commanders +1600 is what I'm seeing at a key offshore book here. Teddy, what are you thinking NFC East this upcoming year?
Yeah, so let's start with Dallas. I'm going in alphabetical orders within the division. Dallas, in June, they were 9.5 to the over. I'm seeing -155. Now we're seeing 10.5 to the over +115. So again, -155 +115. That's less than a half win move when you factor in the juice, but it's a full win difference between the 9.5 over -155 and the 10.5 over -115. They have taken a lot of wise guy support. The Cowboys are a popular choice among the pros to win the NFC and to win the Super Bowl. When you talk about those type of wagers, certainly to win the division, Dallas is taking money as well. Less than 2-1 odds on the Cowboys to win that NFC East. Giants, they haven't been a popular team. You know, everyone knows that they were lucky last year. The statistical profile wasn't great. 7.5 wins under -120 back in June. I'm still seeing that basically 7.5 under -120 right now, along with Washington. You know, the Giants and the Commanders are expected to fight for last place, as opposed to Dallas and Philly are supposed to fight for first place. Nick Sirianni, we're looking at 11.5 over under -110 both ways in June. Now we're looking at 11.5 in basically the same range, -115 to the under. Philly chalk to win the NFC East. I see -135 for the Eagles to win that division. And Washington's had a good preseason. I've upgraded the Commanders from where I had. There aren't many teams that I upgraded in a real way this August. Washington was one of them. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit. Maybe they'll be overvalued after they blow out Arizona on opening day. Arizona looks pretty bad. But Ron Rivera's squad, 6.5 to the over, -120. Hasn't moved a whole lot in terms of the win total. And I'm seeing 13-1 to win the NFC East. So you can shop around and get better than 12-1 if you think the Commanders can knock off the favorites in this division. I don't. I just think Washington's a little bit better than I thought. Maybe I had them power rated too low going to the preseason. The Commanders, there's hope for that team in theory under new ownership.
NFC North Division up next, guys. Minnesota finished at the top last season 13-4, followed by the Detroit Lions 9-8, Green Bay Packers 8-9, and then the Chicago Bears at the bottom 3-14. Looking at the divisions for this upcoming season, the futures here: Lions at the top, Teddy, +145, followed by the Vikings +250, Green Bay Packers +340, and Chicago Bears +450. Just off the look of it, Teddy, at least in the NFC, actually, maybe kind of considered with the NFC North or with the AFC North and AFC East, the most compact in terms of the futures here. Maybe the most competitive, you could make the argument for. What are we thinking in the NFC North division, Teddy?
Sure. This is the team where if the last place team gets hot, all of a sudden we're talking about the Bears, you know, as a potential team to pay attention to. But in terms of line moves from June when we talked about this until now, this division is basically taking the wise guy money minimal. The Bears were 7.5 over -130, and then now I'm seeing them 7.5 over -130. +380 to win the division. Haven't seen a whole lot change there. The Lions were 9.5 over -120 in June. Last night, 9.5 over -120. +140 to win the division for Detroit. And you said +140, 145 with the book that you're looking at. So in that range, so get a plus price, but not a big plus price. The Packers, they're the one team that has taken a little bit of over money, and I can understand why. Green Bay over 7.5 -110 in June, and now I'm seeing overhead -120, -125 plus 400. But it hasn't been a huge move on the Packers. But they have taken a steady diet of over money on their win total. And the Vikings, a team that everyone hated coming into the preseason, they've taken a little bit of under money. They're 8.5 over minus 130. Now they're 8.5 over minus 110. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Green Bay looks a little bit better than anticipated. Chicago might look a little bit better than anticipated. And everyone knows Minnesota went 11-0 in one-score games last year and had a statistical profile of a 500 team, despite the fact they went 13-4. The markets think they're a 500 team. 8.5 minus 110. That is truly lined as a 500 squad.
Guys, we got two divisions left here, the NFC South and the NFC West. Huge shout out to the chat box. Everybody joining us live. We got Smoky Steam Bets in the house, Paco Healy as well, Memorabilia. All you guys, thanks for joining in. I see some good questions, and we will hit them as I believe we're going to have some time at the end. So feel free to chime in. Any last-minute questions here in the live chat box. Also, if you're watching on replay, that's okay too. Please smash that like button and feel free to comment below. We'll answer the questions on next week's show. NFC South up next. Teddy, Tampa Bay finished last season at the top of the division, yet under 500 at 8-9. Carolina Panthers 7-10, as were the New Orleans Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. So three teams 7-10, one team 8-9 at the top. That was the Bucks. We got the division odds here. I'm seeing the Saints at the top plus $1.25. Falcons plus 175, Carolina Panthers plus 425, and at the bottom, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the longest shot at plus 850. Teddy, what are we thinking in the NFC South division?
Yeah, the market's expecting some first to worst for Tampa Bay, but let me start in alphabetical order with Atlanta. They've been a popular over team. Look, the Falcons opened 8.5 under minus 130. Now I'm seeing 8.5 over minus 130. There was a prominent service that released Falcons over their win total. I think it was yesterday or the day before. That gave it another bump up. But yeah, we've seen about a 60-cent move on the 8.5 from the opener to today for Atlanta. They have been a popular team in the markets. I'm seeing them 2-1 them in the division, and there's dumber bets to make than a Falcons team that looks to be a fair bit better than they were last year to win that division. When it comes to Carolina, and this is key. I want to talk about the Panthers for a minute. I got them lined. They were 7.5 over minus 135 at the start of the preseason. They've taken under money. Now it's 7.5 even money, 7.5 minus 105, plus 500 to win the division. Yes, Carolina has looked bad this preseason. Without a shadow of a doubt, the Panthers have looked like a lousy team. If you read the quotes from Carolina prior to the preseason, you've been betting against Carolina in August because Matt Rule said, we're not showing anything. We're not going to do, not Matt Rule. Frank Reich. I said, we're not, Matt Rule's gone. Bye-bye. He's in Nebraska now. But he said, we're not going to show anything. We're not going to do motions. We're not going to show them anything on our offense. We want to be able to come out week one and not teams not have film on everything that we're trying to do. So the markets are kind of crashing on Carolina. And I don't disagree that the Panthers are going to be very much in rebuilding mode this year. But I don't think they're as bad as they've looked in August, based on what the coach's quotes that I read and the game plan that he said they were going to be running. In my mind, that's meaningful. And when it comes to the win total marketplace, that nuance is completely lost. So Carolina has taken under money, and money's coming against them week one and all of that. But the Panthers didn't show anything in August intentionally. Saints are the most, the favorites in the division. I see them plus 105 to win the South. Certainly, Carr had a great preseason. They look good in August. And a team that, wildly underachieved last year, had injury problems. They're the favorites in this division, 9.5 under 25 in June, and still basically the same number here. We're not seeing a groundswell of support for the Saints. And Tampa's taken nothing but under money. 6.5 under 30, now 6.5 under 40. They're 10-1 to win the division. And regardless of whether Mayfield or Trask won the starting QB job, there's not a lot of optimism amongst bettors that I talk to with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Last division up here, guys. NFC West division. It was the San Francisco 49ers at the top last season, 13-4, followed by the Seahawks, 9-8. Both teams qualifying for the playoffs. We got the LA Rams. Big drop off here, Teddy, at 5-12, and the Arizona Cardinals at 4-13. Looking at this year's future odds, we got the 49ers, big favorites, minus $2 to win the division. Seahawks followed at plus 220. LA Rams 1,000 plus 1,000 here, and the Cardinals plus 2,800. I believe that is the highest mark of any division future here. So big long shot with the Cardinals. But what are we thinking here? NFC West to finish it off, Teddy. And guys, reminder, feel free to chime in any questions in the live chat. But what are we thinking in this division, Teddy?
Yeah, and it's important. Like, so if you want something answered on air right now, throw it in the live chat. If you're watching this on replay, please, any comment you give is a positive comment. I don't care if you say you hate the show, but I do my best to get in there at least a couple times during the week and answer all the questions in the chat. I try to answer each and every one, even if you just leave a comment. It really helps us when it comes to algorithms and YouTube and getting this show where it needs to be. I think it's the best show of its kind that you can find anywhere on the internet. So we appreciate all the comments, all the likes, all the follows very, very much. When it comes to this division, look, I mean, San Fran, we talked about the favorites all around. No one's minus $2. The Niners are minus $2. You know, San Fran, a very popular team in the markets, 10.5 over minus 120 at the open. They got bet up to 11. Now I'm seeing a split market, 10.5 over minus 45. There are some 11s out there, and they are the single biggest favorite to win the division, which speaks volumes about what the NFC West is. This is not one of the better divisions in football this year, the way they have been in some recent years. Arizona's being priced as the worst team in the NFL, and if you watch them this August, they look like the worst team in the NFL. I mean, the Cardinals, they won 2 preseason games. Don't be fooled. Their starters, every time they were on the field, were pretty much dominated. There's a reason Washington's laying a touchdown and taking money in week 1 against Arizona. Arizona looks god-awful. 4.5 wins. I'm seeing over minus 120, over minus 130. They haven't taken a whole lot of under money yet, but as you mentioned, 35-1 to win the division. And there's probably dumber bets to make than Arizona 35-1 to win the division, but I'm not making it. So it's hard to picture a scenario where Arizona's competitive. Rams, 6.5 wins, minus 110 in June. Now we're seeing 6.5, minus 105 to the over. I'm seeing plus 1,000 for LA to win that division. And the Rams are really an interesting team because their frontline talent's really good. Their depth, a significant problem. And from a defensive standpoint, you don't learn anything from Sean McVay in the offseason, but defensively on paper, the Rams look, they have a lot of big question marks. Their frontline talent gets hurt. This team's going to be a disaster. The frontline talent stays healthy. Maybe they'll be better than expected. I'm not playing the Rams win total. We talked about the 49ers a minute ago and the minus 190, minus $2 to win the division and 10.5. We've seen some over money, and then we saw them get bet up to 11, and now we're seeing 10.5 with juice. But San Fran, the clear favorite here, and then Seattle. I've released them for the clients, 8.5 wins back in June, and now they're looking at 9.5 wins. So we got the best of that line move. Although it was 8.5 over minus 130, now it's 9.5 over plus and a quarter. So it's really more like a 50-cent move as opposed to a full game move. Nonetheless, like I said, we got the best of the number with the 3 overs that I played, all 3 of them on the win total report. So I have that's why we release early. That's why we put out football, talk about football in June and July, not just here in late August. That said, Seattle has been a popular over team early on in the betting, or not early on, but in the offseason betting markets. The Seahawks have taken money as a team that the wise guys seem to like, although they don't love. There you have it, man. 8 divisions. Whew.
And some good questions coming to you, Teddy. First off, in the live chat box, Raven Ron asking a rules question here. Teddy, do the books give NFL teams a 0 or a 0.5 for tied games when it comes to season win totals, grading them at the end of the season?
0. The answer is 0. If you don't get a win,
is a loss.
Correct.
Ooh.
Absolutely. A tie is a loss. And I think one time I remember a tie being a difference between a team cashing and not cashing, how they tie. But yes, a tie is not you're going over or under a certain number of wins. All right. That's the bet, is over or under 3 wins, 9 wins, 12 wins, whatever it is. If a team ties, that's not a win. Counts as a loss.
And that's it, industry wide. It's not book to book. Maybe one book would give a 0.5. Okay, no, they wouldn't.
To the best of mine, I've never heard it graded any other way. You're betting on teams' total wins. You're not betting on teams' total losses. when you get the sheets or when you get the printout, it even says on a regular season, NFL regular season wins. That's what you're betting on. So a tie is not a win. It's not a half a win.
Good question. We got Tyrone Boyd chiming in. He was the first one. Always like to give the first comment a little love. Thank you, Teddy, for the spot-on analysis. Off to a good start. Thanks to you, Andrew, the Growl Martin. I want to say, Tyrone, thanks for the big the props, but the growl isn't there 100%. I was out last week, and apologies for the voice, guys. I'm just getting back to it. The Vegas flu, if you will. Sean Alvarez in the house as well. Smoky Steam Bets. There's a lot of Paco Healy, the VIPs in here. But Teddy, I guess a question here. It had to do with betting season win totals or division futures. Are you more season win totals, obviously, with the report, but do you bet division futures at all?
Yes. In fact, if you've got my report on several of the wagers that I recommended, I laid out exactly how I bet it, where I bet the majority on the win total, but I also played some. I'll do yes, no to make the playoffs, and I'll do yes, no to win the division. So, for example, it was a 4-star play. I would say put 3%. 4% wager, put 3% on the win total itself, and then put 0.5% on to make the playoffs and 0.5% on to win the division. So I did do some of that. I do get involved with all three wagers. The best of the bunch is the win total, in my opinion. Because again, the win totals, it's all about that team. You're able to eliminate the rest of the division good? When you have odds to make the playoffs, now you're handicapping the whole field. When you're, because it's not just the one team that you're talking about. If another, if you think a team's going to be pretty good and they go, 9-8 or 10-7, but they don't make the playoffs because there are other good teams that also had that record, they lose on tiebreakers or whatever. It does happen. It happens all the time. So the best bet of the group, in my opinion, is season wins. Second is make playoffs. And third is win division.
Okay, kind of correlated with that. A little follow-up to you, Teddy, is Smoky Steam Bets has a question. Teddy, would you rather take Chargers over 9.5 or to make the playoffs at a -150 price tag? To make the playoffs makes more sense to me than the over. What do you think about that question?
I don't want either one. Okay. When it comes to the Chargers, the Chargers, to me, when a team lacks depth, they're not a team I'm playing over, and they're not a team I'm going to ask to make the playoffs. Especially, in the AFC, there's not a lot of, hey, let's ask this team to make the playoffs. When you look at the AFC is freaking ridiculous. It really is. In terms of the strength between the two conferences, AFC is so much better than the NFC. It's not close. So when it comes to AFC teams to make the playoffs, there's going to be good teams that get left out of the mix in the AFC far more than the NFC. So I'm much more inclined to make that bet for an NFC team than for an AFC team. You understand what I'm saying? When you look at the AFC right now, all right, should I go through it real quick? Because, teams that have a realistic chance to make the playoffs, there's a dozen plus. And that's not the case, I think, in the NFC. In the AFC, Buffalo, Miami, the Jets, all live. Baltimore's live. Cincinnati's live. That's 5. Cleveland, Pittsburgh, that's 7. New England's probably live to make the playoffs. That's 8. Someone's going to win the AFC South. That's 9. If the Tennessee Titans are any good, that could be 10. And in the West, we already know the Chiefs and the Chargers are good. That's a dozen teams that can make, 11, 12 teams that can make the playoffs. Whereas in the NFC, it's harder to make a positive scenario for that many teams. There's your rebuilding squad. It's going to be harder for Washington to make the playoffs. It's going to be hard for Chicago to make the playoffs. It's going to be hard for Carolina or Tampa Bay to make the playoffs. It's going to be hard for Arizona or the Rams to make the playoffs. That's 6 teams you can eliminate right off the bat there. So I think the AFC is much tougher than the NFC. You see what I'm saying, Drew? Am I talking too fast right now? You look at me like I have 26 heads.
I'm picking up what you're laying down. I'm thinking about what I'm asking next as well, Teddy, because what you're getting at is the AFC is more competitive, projected to be a lot more competitive than the NFC. So therefore, make the playoffs. You want to kind of pump the brakes a little bit more in the AFC. I get it.
Yeah. Yes. So After talking it out, I'd probably rather have the Chargers over their win total than to win the AFC East, or than to make the playoffs, especially because the one you have to lay a price with.
But what about, because Smokey's seen bets, it's a great question here. What about just the structure of the bet, not necessarily in particular to the Chargers? And actually, let me tee it up with you. Last season, one of the better bets I've made of recent, at least in like futures projections, was the Jaguars to win the division plus 700. But let me walk you through how I handicapped it. I'm going through each team and I'm like, Jaguars over season win total, it was 6.5. And I'm like, I really like it. I bet it, and then I'm like, all right, do I give it out 6.5? And then I just was like, hey, I'm going to check the division odds. It was kind of secondary to me, and I'm like, plus 700. Hold on a second here, because I was thinking the Titans were going to win the division, Teddy, but that was really it. It was like I wasn't thinking the other two teams could win it, and that's why I kind of decided to go Jaguars plus 700 rather than 6.5. So I think there is a case to be made for division futures having that extra little punch, big plus price if it sets up that way. However, I do think season win totals is the smarter bet over the long term, because you're having to, it's not a futures wager, it's a minus 110 wager. So it's kind of like the financially savvy, smarter way to kind of risk your money. But I do think, division futures at times can be the better bet. What's your overall thought on just kind of, futures betting in season win total and that nature?
So you bet baseball all summer, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. How many plus 700 dogs you hit this summer?
None.
The answer is 0, because there haven't been any.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
You spent all baseball season looking at dogs. You don't find a plus 700 dog that's live. All right. In the football betting markets, to win a division, sometimes you can find a plus 700 dog that's live. All right. So there is a case to be made for betting odds to win the division in football. I've got an odd to win the division bet as a primary wager in my season win total report, which I don't normally do. Absolutely, that this is something that is a piece of the betting equation, and I wouldn't look past it. And just importantly, I wouldn't look past it after September 10th. You didn't make that bet before the season last year, right? You made it in season. Those bets will be there. No,
I made it like the week before the season started.
Okay. The point is, some of those bets will be there in season as well.
Yeah, and if you remember right, the Jaguars for a portion there were like on a 4 or 5 game losing streak. I'm like, this is done, and then they went on that. Yeah. So it was almost one of those.
Tennessee got hurt and got cold, and Jacksonville got hot down the stretch. Absolutely.
Right, for sure. A funny comment here. I was thinking this too as you were talking about the Falcons. Lou said, no idea Teddy's season win plays, but imagine he is on the Falcons over. Teddy, when you were talking about the Falcons, you made a heck of a case. I'm intrigued by the Dirty Birds to the over as well. I guess I would just say Desmond Ridder, at the quarterback position. I don't know. Are you worried about it at all? I mean, it's not like he's been all that. Yeah.
It's not a lock. It's not a done deal. They got to win 9 games, and I got a real question mark at quarterback. And I have a head coach that if things go wrong is going to be fired. But I think things will go right. I look at their schedule, and I say this team can win games. And on paper, if Ridder is decent, Atlanta's live to do anything. They do not step up in class a whole lot with their schedule, and then the bet's based largely on the schedule. So, yeah, I do like the Falcons. But, again, I bet that early. I bet all that stuff early. Now, it's not necessarily as good of a bet as it was a month or two ago. And that's why we do all this stuff early. And that's why if you want to get on board, that's why we have opening line reports in May and June when we're talking about all this stuff to try to get people to understand the markets are moving, lock in now. I do that the best I can, but I'm sure there are lots of people out there that are just taking their first look at these lines today. In which case you got to, you take what you can get. I said I wouldn't be betting the Falcons under. I think they're alive.
Grant saying, TC, love the win report every year just for fun. What is your Super Bowl pick?
I have no idea. I haven't made a Super Bowl bet. I listed, I think, a few minutes ago, like 22 teams I thought were live to make the playoffs. And any one of them gets hot in August, in January, they can win the Super Bowl. You're not going to catch me making a Super Bowl bet on this show or any show. It's just not what I do. I don't care who wins the Super Bowl. The week of the game, I'll care a lot who wins the Super Bowl. But now I could care less. Doesn't matter. Better bets to make. Better ways to lock up your bankroll than Super Bowl futures.
Vince Vegas saying, no one wins sports betting. No one except Billy Walters. He went to prison for it. Teddy, what's your opinion on that? Does anybody win sports betting long term?
So there aren't many people that win sports betting long term. I will say there are some. I will say I know some. And Billy Walters did not go to prison for sports betting. He went to prison for tax evasion after Phil Mickelson ratted him out for sports betting. So there aren't many. I don't disagree with your concept. There aren't many people that win long term. But, my NFL track record is pretty good. Short term, last year was not a great year for me. Long term, my NFL has been consistently profitable, and the win totals year in and year out have been profitable. So I understand there are lots of negative Nellies out there. If you don't think you can beat the NFL, don't bet it. I think I can beat the NFL, so I'm going to try to bet it.
Teddy, follow up with that Billy Walters question. Is it true? I heard that Billy Walters went to prison and Mickelson didn't go to prison because Mickelson came up with the money to pay the taxes. Is that the difference to your knowledge?
This is what I know. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I know. I know I don't trust Billy Walters to tell a true story, and I don't trust Phil Mickelson to tell a true story. That's what I know.
Okay.
Billy Walters is a storyteller. Okay, things are going to get exaggerated. Things are going to get switched around, and he's trying to sell books, which when you're trying to sell books, stories get accentuated a little bit. Don't trust Billy Walters. I would not take his word on any of this stuff. That being said, if you ask me, whose character do you appreciate more, Billy Walters or Phil Mickelson? Billy Walters is a guy you shake his hand and it's a done deal. Phil Mickelson, everybody in Vegas hates the guy. I mean, I've never seen someone more universally reviled in this town than Phil Mickelson. The dealers hate him. The pit bosses hate him. The sportsbook managers hate him. They just don't like him. Phil Mickelson has a reputation in Las Vegas being a complete and total a-hole to everybody, which, again, doesn't make him a negative on losing better. But what in theory he did to Billy Walters is, and again, if it's me or you going to prison, Drew, I mean, I get it. If it's me or you going to prison and I'm a guy who really doesn't want to be in prison, I'm going to try to send you there. And certainly Phil Mickelson was that guy.
He's Teddy Covers. I'm Drew Martin, guys. That appreciate all the comments in the live chat. I don't know that I would send too many people to prison here, Teddy. Maybe, hey, I don't know.
But no, okay. The choice is you can testify against me and I'll go to prison and you won't, or you can not testify and you'll go to prison and I won't. I wouldn't expect you not to testify against me. That's your self-interest.
It depends. It depends on how much time they're hanging over my head.
Sure. And again, Billy Walters is the handshake guy. So Billy Walters said, I would never do that, but shut up. You're not going to prison for me. I wouldn't want you to go for prison for me. If I had I'm not going to prison. Reward, I haven't done anything. But if it came down to it, I would expect you to do my time.
I don't plan on going to prison either. I'm not doing anything illegal, but it is what it is.
It's all hypotheticals here.
Yeah. Guys, Teddy Covers, Drew Martin, NFL opening line report each and every Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. I am going to be off next week. I believe Joe stepping in, maybe Dan for me. LSU FSU game, Teddy. Sunday night, singled out in Orlando. I'm excited. We don't get to go to many games doing what we do, but that's one I'm going to head to. But yeah, guys, come back for the week 1. I'll be in this seat week 2 through week 18, I believe, for the NFL season and the playoffs, as well as we're going all the way through the Super Bowl, the week after the Super Bowl as well. We'll get you ready for the futures. So stay tuned for that, guys. Check out Teddy Covers, WagerTalk.com. I'm Drew Martin on WagerTalk, as well as NFL season wins 97-47, 67%. Last 21 years, 15-4, 79% on the 5% big tickets. His NFL week 1, guys, for whatever reason, week 1, Teddy's doing the work in the offseason. Wow, look at these numbers. 25-6, 81% the last 8 years, 7-2, 78% week 1, 5% tickets. So check that out. Teddy, you know why. Final thoughts here for the show before we shut it down.
Yeah, I bust my ass on NFL over the summer. Okay, you guys know I do. I bust my ass in the spring. I bust my ass over the summer, and I watch a ton of preseason. So week 1, I'm ready. And I've been doing this a long time. I got a lot of experience week 1. And I'm not surprised. I expect to win week 1 this year. I expect to win big week 1 this year. Obviously, 25-6 the last 8 week 1s. Get on board right now over at WagerTalk.com for a week 1 package or any. Don't buy any weeks. All right, get on board. If you want to ride, let's go. We're going to win money this NFL season. Get on board.
Get on board. Let's go. Let's ride. Teddy covers Drew Martin. That does it for the show, guys. Please smash that like button. Comment below. Come back and join us next week. Cash those tickets, guys. Thanks for tuning in.